Welcome to Travels with Tulsans, sponsored by the Friends of the Tulsa City County Libraries. My name is Marion Sexton, and we are so glad to have you join us for the 6th of our 8 adventures. If you would like more information about becoming a friend of the Tulsa City County Libraries, please visit tulsalibrary.org/friends. Be sure to join us next Wednesday for Wildlife of Tanzania with Teresa Minders Burkett. The link you used for this week is good again for each of the next 2 weeks. If you don't have a link or lost yours, email friends@tulsalibrary.org to request one. And please feel free to share the link with your friends. Our travels presentations are being recorded. If you miss any or would like to see them again, the past 5 weeks' presentations are already posted on the Tulsa Library YouTube page. During the presentation, feel free to put any questions you may have of our presenter in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Following his presentation, any questions you have will be addressed. Our traveler today, sharing Helsinki, Finland, and Tallinn, Estonia, is George Moudry. George grew up in Czechoslovakia, where he studied 4 years of engineering at South Bohemian University. After the Russian invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968, George immigrated to Canada and graduated from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. He obtained his master's degree at the University of South Alabama and a doctorate in exercise physiology at the University of Tennessee. For several years, he taught anatomy and physiology at 2 universities. After George earned his MBA, he became an administrator at St. John Health System in Tulsa. He capped his career as the director of academic services at OSU School of Osteopathic Medicine here in Tulsa. George and his wife, Gwen, are retired after a long career in healthcare. George and Gwen are avid travelers. Please join me in welcoming George Moudry. Hi, George. We are so glad to have you. And
thank you.
All yours.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. How do I get rid of this?
You need to share your screen.
Oh, here you go. We have, okay, that's Gwen and I, and the way we traveled. We took a 3-week cruise in 2019, visited 9 cities in Northern Europe, and of course, including Helsinki and Tallinn. Here we are in Tallinn port, ready to go. Well, first country we'll visit is Finland. Finland is, the map of Finland shows that's a country full of lakes. There are thousands of lakes and thousands of little islands all the way around the country. On the south, the Helsinki, the capital, is on the very south of the country on the Gulf of Inland. And you see that St. Petersburg right here is, very close to the parts of the country we'll be talking about.
George, we can't see your screen yet.
You cannot hear?
We can't see your screen.
Oh, yeah, okay, let's see, how's that? I don't know how to turn that on. Anyway, I'll continue until my wife figures it out. It's not my picture. My picture is not there. See the camera is off. Oh, here.
Start video. Okay.
I need to get rid of this. Well, anyway, can't figure it out.
George, make sure you hit the share screen button, the green button there at the bottom.
Well, I don't have that. It's
You're gonna have to click out of here.
and show.
You need to get out of this slide in order to do that.
Well, if I am
Go up there.
up where? Here?
Up here.
If I click out of here,
So what's the problem? You don't have a screen at all, is that correct?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
These are not.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, how do we'll just carry on and hope for the best.
So what's the problem?
There's no my picture on there. Anyway, let's go talk about Finland. Finland is a parliamentary republic. They have two official languages, which is Finnish and Swedish. The weather is boreal weather, which is semi-Arctic, because it's a northern country and it's on a latitude of maybe Newfoundland, or so actually northern Newfoundland. Oh, so it could be pretty chilly. Let's look at Europe really quickly. The European Union, almost all the countries without few, are in European Union. There are 27 countries. As you see, England is no longer blue. The dark, they're all in the European Union, but the light blue are out of Eurozone. That means those countries have their own currency. They don't use euros exclusively. So if you visit Poland or Sweden or any of these countries, then I would suggest that you actually load up on the current currency of the country, because it'll be much cheaper than you buying in euros. So that's the difference between the Eurozone and the European Union. And of course, Finland right here, and the Baltic republics, they are all part of European Union. Well, let's look at the neighborhood a little bit. The Finland is right here next to Sweden. It also borders Norway on the north. Then, of course, the Baltic Sea goes around Finland, and this little bay is the Bay of Finland. And then right south of it is Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, which are the Baltic republics. So that'll show you the influence of Russia. Look, the Russia is all the way around. And when, before 1993, all Estonia, all the Baltic republics, including Belarus and including Ukraine and all that, they were part of Soviet Union. Those countries are relatively new, like only 28 years old, gained independence. Don't forget, there's also a little Russian enclave right here just north of Poland, the Kaliningrad, which was not a republic. It was part of Mother Russia, so it's still Russia. The flag of Finland is a blue cross in a white field. Finland has very stormy history, and especially the wars against Russian dominance. After the Second World War, Finland gained independence and rose to prosperity. So Finland is really, old, only like 70 years. Finland has 5.5 million citizens. The economy of Finland is based on industry, electronics, manufacturing, and lumber and wood products. A lot of forest in the country. Helsinki itself has population of 600,000, 660,000, and ranks as has the highest quality of urban living in the world. If you come in to Finland on a ship, as we did, you go by numerous islands, and many of these islands are fortified by fortresses. One of the biggest one is Suomenlinna fortress. That is practically in the city because it's only 4 clicks from Helsinki. If you travel the Baltic Sea, and on many of these islands, many of them have fortresses, sea fortresses, guarding access to the city or whatever. This is typical Swedish design. Around Sweden, these star-like fortresses are everywhere, essentially. Okay, we move to yeah. Go
George,
ahead.
let's see if we can't figure out how to get everyone to see your pictures.
Okay.
Again. All right. So do you see, you're in the Zoom window. You don't see the green button that says share screen?
No, I am not because the whole screen is filled with the presentation.
Your PowerPoint. Are you able to minimize that window?
No, well, and show. No, I'm not. Let's see. No, I'm not.
Try the end show.
Yes, do the end show, like I said, right click.
Hold on. Okay, and show that'll get me out. Okay, good. All right. Now I am out.
Okay. Are you seeing your Zoom controls? No?
Go to Zoom.
The Zoom is right here.
and open it.
Sign in. Okay, I need to sign in and everything. Hold on.
You need the password.
I don't know what it is.
Or put Kardashian.
Are you seeing your Zoom controls yet?
Okay. No. Well, we have to sign it in all from the very beginnings. So passwords and whatnot. Okay, introducing Zoom. Return to meeting. Okay, here I am. And
Okay, go up to share up here.
I don't see share screen. Share screen, okay.
And then
Yeah.
select your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well,
Just
we'll
leave it
leave.
that way.
Okay. I want to go to
And you can
previous-
start it from current slide up there on the left
Okay,
if you want to.
all right. Okay, so we had, all right, well, then the Helsinki Square is also the Senator Square in Helsinki is the center of the city. And it's dominated by the Helsinki Cathedral that sits on the hill. And the long staircase leading to the cathedral is a very popular meeting place for everybody. The interesting statue that dominates the square is a statue of Alexander II, Tsar of Russia and Grand Duke of Finland. He was a benevolent monarch and reformer. He promoted education, curbed privileges of nobility, meaning he was taken lands away and given to people who actually worked the land. And also he sold Alaska to USA in 1867. Why did he sell it? Well, for two reasons. He was running out of money. He needed money, just like Napoleon needed the money when he sold French Louisiana to Thomas Jefferson. That's one reason. Second reason, he was afraid of England because England was pushing really hard through Canada, and actually Canada then bordered Alaska. And he was afraid that England will take over that huge territory. So he sold it to, curb the British Empire expansion. He, that time, in Europe, late 19th century was really almost warlike. There were a lot of emperors, so they established the League of Three Emperors. That's a Russian emperor, German, and Austria, against the empires of British Empire and France. And actually that quieted everything down because there were two strong camps, and both of them were afraid of each other. So unfortunately, he was assassinated by an anarchist in 1881. So I'm a little bit of a historian, and so you have to indulge me in some of these side tracks. The square is surrounded by lovely buildings, like this building of the Helsinki University. Everything is clean. People are well dressed, seem very relaxed, very peaceful around. If you look at the architecture, you will see many buildings in Helsinki like this. There are these 6 Ionic columns on the second floor, right? And there's 7 windows on each side of these columns on either side. And, it must be a, design. I really haven't seen these anywhere else, but there's plenty of them in Helsinki, and I'll point them out as we go. Well, when we go to the city, we will see some lovely buildings, old buildings from 18th or even 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries that stand beside the modern structures. Like this house, this building, you probably could see it in Berlin, or in Copenhagen, or anywhere in Northern Europe. We went through the city. We went to Alexandria, which is the main street, the busiest street, the financial center. Notice in this street and on previous slides, there's no traffic, no car traffic. It's a lot of pedestrian zones. I'd like to point out again the buildings. See that these modern buildings. There's a modern building of glass and steel beside these older buildings, and even older still down the block. So there's a beautiful mixture of the old and new in the city. However, one of the really modern structure is the Kamppi Mall. That's the biggest shopping mall in Helsinki. It sits on Kamppi Square. So we see shoppers leaving with a bag of goodies. Another superstructure is this Chiasma Museum. It's a modern art museum with park around it, and the grounds are beautifully groomed around just about around every building. And if you look at this other museum, this is the Design Museum. Helsinki, by the way, is famous for design art. industrial design, fashion design, graphics, etc. This building, of course, is old building, probably 200 years old, and the building really is very much in Danish structure. If you go to Copenhagen, you will see buildings like these everywhere. Notice these pointy roofs and spires. It's typically Danish architecture. Helsinki City Hall, again, City Hall, the typical Finnish architecture with these 6 columns, although these are not Ionic, and of the 7 windows on each side. And that's just the way it is. Everything is nice and clean, beautifully, peaceful in the city. And we'll enter. What is this doing here? Well, I tell you what it is. This is the Central Park of Helsinki. And nothing like Central Park in New York. This is wilderness, essentially forest, with not really taken care of or groomed, nothing. People just enjoy walking in the forest, in the moss, and jumping over the branches and the roots. Well, that's refreshing. This building is the Finland Congress Hall. Yeah, it's a majestic building, sort of like our own Supreme Court, but this building exudes power. It's a wonderful architecture. Okay, if you go further down the streets, you see some other buildings. Again, this building, elaborate, building almost like Art Deco, is again, like you see a lot of these in Berlin, buildings like this. So you can see the legacies, architectural legacies from Sweden, from Danes, Russians, Germans. So that's interesting. The Sibelius Monument is such a huge structure. It's Sibelius, John the Sibelius was a famous Finnish composer, and he composed also for organ music. And so this monument, well, he's a really modern artist. He died in 1957, and this monument was built at 10th anniversary of his death in 1967. This monument is built with 600 steel pipes that are welded together to make kind of wave-like appearance, music notes going up and down. It's huge, because if you stand underneath it, the 6-footer, anybody who was 6 feet would probably be just reaching the bottom of the lowest pipe. So that's how huge it is. I don't know how many hundreds of tons the monument is. It sits on Sibelius, inside Sibelius Park. Okay, next slide is the National Theatre. National Theatre is an old building, beautiful building, and Alexis the 15th sits in front of the building. Alexis 15th was a prolific Finnish playwright. So that's why he's singled out. Another building is National Museum. National Museum, from Finland. We didn't go there, but we usually go to all the museums we can, and churches. But this building is relatively modern. It was built in 1885, I believe. So, you know, a little over 100 years old, 100 and some, but imposing building. However, this is entirely different style. This is typical Russian style. This is Uspensky Cathedral. It's a massive structure it has 14 spires around it, and each spire has a gilded globe on top. Very popular landmark, as you see by the number of tourists that are waiting to get in for a tour. Again, that underscores the Russian influence through the whole region. Now we go back to port, and it has two sides. The South Harbor. It has an amusement park with Ferris wheel and swings and all kinds of amusement attractions. Of course, the Helsinki Cathedral is again visible from everywhere. And if you looked over here, I hope you can see my cursor, you can see the building again, 6 columns, 7 windows. It actually, I don't know, but it actually looks like probably one of the part of the university. So that's one side of the harbor. On the other side is the west side of the harbor. The west side is there's a lot of restaurants, movie houses, bars, a couple of swimming pools that are heated, and it's free. Just bring your bathing suit and, you know, jump in. As you see, you know, people here enjoying their, you know, probably lunch or dinner, and back here, people are sunning and, you know, trying to catch some rays. So that is Helsinki. It's a beautiful city. I cannot stress how people are relaxed. There is no shouting, no pushing, no shoving, and everybody is, you know, just going along happily. All right. Oh, in the back, you can see that this sea of umbrellas. That's a bazaar. And I am told that bazaar is open all the time, and especially on the weekends. So you can buy just about anything there. Okay, we'll go on to Estonia and Tallinn. These are the coat of arms of Estonia and coat of arms of Tallinn. And again, we look at the neighborhood. These are the 3 Baltic republics: Estonia on the north, Latvia in the middle, and Lithuania on the south. The Gulf of Finland on the north, and on the west side is the Baltic Sea. The Baltic republics. Again, you can see Russia to the east, and Belarus to the southeast. And Poland, of course, in the south. The flag is blue, black, and white. And you have seen it in the recent Olympics. In fact, there were quite a few Estonians doing really well in some of the events. For a country that only has 1 million people, it's remarkable. So the Tallinn has 440,000 people. Estonia has 1.4 million. And Tallinn, of course, is the industrial cultural center of Estonia. But Tallinn is very, very old town. It gained this town status as early as 1248 because of his really advantageous location at the mouth of Gulf of Finland. And for that reason, of course, everybody wanted to be control that. And we are talking about just about everybody, the Danes and Swedes and the Norwegians, Germans, Russians, so they're, pretty hard times. The economy is based of oil, shale industry, oil, telecommunications, chemistry, banking, and shipbuilding. Again, Estonia also ranks at the top for quality of life. The old town in Tallinn, Tallinn, is one of the most preserved medieval towns in Europe. In fact, the UNESCO registry. So we'll visit Old Town. Old Town is surrounded by strong city walls and guarded by numerous towers that are interspaced along that wall. Outside of the wall is a park, nice park for people to walk in and relax. And the park is called Plaza de Torre, or Park of the Towers, or Square of the Towers. If we go along the wall, we see the gates. They have access to the inside of the medieval town. These wooden catwalks, veranda catwalks, all along the top of the wall. Of course, they were for defense against some marauders, and they are both on the outside and inside. So if you look at the inside of the courtyards, the catwalks go, all the way, all the way across on top. Some enterprising people utilize some of these catwalks as little bars. People go in to look down at the city and maybe have a beer or two. Popular with tourists. Okay, we have in the castle courtyard stand 3 mysterious and faceless Hmong statues. They are 2.5 meters tall. I am 6 foot, so you can imagine how huge these statues are. It's called the courtyard of 3 statues. There are 3 monks, and this one is called the waiting monk, waiting for something. I'm sure he's waiting still. The second monk called the observing monk, and he stands on a ledge in the middle of the wall, but it is on the inside of the courtyard. And the last monk, called the praying monk, shares the space in the sunny corner of the courtyard with a musician that happens to feed the pigeons right now. Okay, this is this guy, Vana Tom, Old Tom. Well, he is the big man in campus in Tallinn. Why is that? Well, he is the guardian of the city. Very much celebrated and famous. In fact, so much so that a city hall is a weather vane in his liking. The Old Tom is there on top of the city. Well, who was he? This guy is of very humble origin. In the past, 14 and 1500s, there were some competitions, town competitions that were accessible only to the nobility, the upper echelon of citizenship. Of course, the knights, they had joust tournaments and whatnot, but one of the tournaments was archery tournament. And there was a tall wooden pole with a wooden parrot on top, really tall pole. And the archers were trying to shoot the wooden parrot down, and nobody could succeed. Suddenly, this young boy runs through the crowd with his trusty bow and arrow, lets the arrow fly, and knocks the parrot down, which was, of course, breach of etiquette. Then, he didn't belong and whatnot. But the city fathers said, we'll make a soldier out of him. He's a good, he's a good archer. So he was in the army, and then by and by he became the part of the city guard and the captain of the city guard is, known as the guardian of Tallinn. Medieval town. You have all these narrow cobblestone streets between two walls. A great place to walk. Outside, no cars, quiet. Sometimes they made a hole in the wall to just make access for the cars to get out of the city or inside in the city. So it's good to know some of the shortcuts. This is a very small museum on one of the terraces of the courtyards, and it has museum of medieval arms, but it's mostly swords and javelins and pikes. On a low hill outside city walls sits this cannon tower called the Fat Margaret. Right now it's Estonian Maritime Museum. Fat Margaret, during the Russian times, was used as prison, and particularly they imprisoned here political prisoners outside of Mother Russia, out there in the boonies by Baltic Sea. Well, in 1917, during the Russian Revolution, the revolutionists, they stormed the tower and killed all the staff and released all the prisoners. So that's a legacy of Fat Margaret. Another tower that is on the other side of the city wall is called Pig Herman. Again, it's a fortress that had cannons and guarded the city. We go in the upper town, and the upper town is elevated, and from there you can actually see the old town and the lower town beautifully with Saint Nicolas church in there, the city walls underneath, and of course the Bay of Finland in the back and the Baltic Sea. In the upper town, one of the attractions is the Russian Orthodox Church called Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. It's the biggest Russian Orthodox church in town. You can see the onion domes and all that. And we had a peek inside, and that's the altar. In of course, Orthodox is pictures of saints and wooden carvings, beautifully done. And we go down, we walk down toward the main square through these narrow streets, quite charming. There are some coffee houses there, a few boutiques, but anyway, it's a nice walk through the medieval city. When we get down, as we approach, we can see the slim high tower of St. Olaf Church. And St. Olaf Church has the highest, used to have the highest steeple in Europe. And that church actually served as a guiding post to the sailors that sail the Bay of Finland. It's still the highest in Estonia. Quite picturesque. The next is the St. Nicolas Church on Main Square. The religion in Estonia is, none really. If you look at the religious affiliations, it's like zero. Of course, there's some, but essentially, it's an atheist country. And so the church is used as the big arm museum. There's all kinds of different arms, and the lower town, the actual town, has all kinds of motor conveniences, really good tram system. The Estonia Parliament building looks like a regular building. One would probably say it's a hotel or maybe even a city hall, but it's not that pretentious, but it's nice and pink. Good education system in Estonia. This is actually University of Technology, and they claim they're on the level with the MIT. So maybe not, maybe yes, but it's a beautiful, very modern campus, all steel, and of course there are some modern skyscrapers like the bank building. And if you travel in the side streets, there are a lot of wooden houses, beautiful little wooden houses. No, they are not so little. I'm sure they're apartment buildings, and some of them are probably privately owned, but they look very much like this. Look at this, look at the windows, the type of the windows. That's the type of the window. These are the same as here and here. So anyway, that's the main neighborhood. And the last image is of the Baroque palace, Cadrillo, which was built by Peter the Great for his second wife, Catherine the First. When he died, Catherine became Tsarina of Russia for only 2 years, but good years, I guess. So that's Tallinn, and the test will be next week. Okay, if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, George. We do have a couple of questions, and feel free to put questions in the chat if you have some. Jane wanted to know, what are the temperature ranges in seasons?
In the winter it's cold, there's no doubt about it. In the summer it's warm, but of course there's a lot of influence of the sea, so it's pretty breezy. The broad winds from the Baltic Sea are definitely being felt. And if you notice, I didn't say that, I should have. If you notice, the people walking around the square, they all have jackets, and this is summer. Yeah. So on a cooler side.
Okay, good. She also asked if Estonia and Russia are good neighbors to each other.
Well, right now, yes, right now, since they became independent, of course, their independence is being propped up by European Union and, of course, United States and whatnot. Putin, of course, would like to return to old Russian glory, and he's trying to snatch Ukraine, which is very important part of the country. It was always regarded as the breadbasket of Russia. You know, a lot of agriculture and stuff. So he already took Crimea, but
Yeah. You said that these countries only existed for 70 years. Did they not exist before the Soviet Union?
not as independent countries, no. They were always under somebody owned them. The Dutch, if you know, I mean, I looked at, there have been how many rulers? Probably a dozen rulers, maybe more, over the last several hundred years. Russia, of course, was in the last century or maybe century and a half was Russia, but before it was Sweden, and before that Norway, and before that was Denmark, and you know, so. And during the war, you know, it was German occupied Estonia because of its location.
So was there actually a country, but it was under somebody else?
No, they were never a country. They were,
Okay.
well, a province, or the Russians call them republics, you know, like we call states, right?
Right.
In Union, they call them, you know, republics, but they were not independent. In other words, they were never independent until 1993. They always had a foreign ruler or overlord.
Right. Well, was Finland an independent country?
No, Finland was independent after Second World War. After First War, they tried to become independent, and they formed a parliament, which is the first step. But before they were recognized and internationally recognized as independent, Hitler came in. So this was, you know, in the 30s, you know, they started expanding, and so that was snuffed. But after the Second World War, the victors, you know, like United States dictated, and they became independent, and they're doing quite nicely.
Good. Are either of those countries part of the European Union or NATO?
They're all part of the Union, European Union, with the exception of Norway.
Yeah, I knew Norway wasn't.
And NATO, to tell you what, I know Poland is, of course, part of NATO, and you know, Denmark, but the Baltic republics, I don't know. I cannot say.
Okay.
However,
Well,
NATO,
I know that's
NATO,
one of
yeah, I don't know.
that's one of Putin's objections about Ukraine. He doesn't want them to become part of NATO. So I assumed he felt that way about the Baltic states too. I don't know.
Yeah, but Ukraine is so so deep into Russia. It's much bigger land mass than Baltic republics. You know, like St. Petersburg is, you know, from Estonia, from Tallinn, just a hop and a jump right next door, really. Yes, you know, let's hope that this situation is going to be solved diplomatically and not
I sure hope so.
militarily. That would
Yeah.
be a disaster.
What language do they speak in Estonia?
In where in Ukraine? Where?
In Estonia.
Oh, that's an interesting question. They have a language of their own, Estonian language, that has been old, you know, for centuries old. But the Russian dominance was so strong that of course, they all speak Russian, right?
Yeah.
But there are some, they speak only Russian. They're, well, some people claim quite a large group of people, especially around the Russian border, that speak only Russian. They don't speak any Estonian. In fact, just recently, was it? Maybe last year, there was one politician, Estonian, that wanted to be in the Congress, but he only could speak Russian. He didn't speak, so that was a bit of a handicap.
I'll bet. Was Helsinki bombed during World War II? And well, both cities were they bombed?
Well, they were occupied during the war. Nazi Germany occupied them, and that's why they still, even today, I think, a lot of German influence. And no, they were not really ravished by the war. That was not the main battleground.
I wondered how their old buildings had been able to survive if they had been.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Sibelius Monument that you showed was fascinating. Does it make any sound?
People claim that when it's windy, that they could hear the pipes humming, because if you go a step closer, some of these pipes are perforated. They are not solid.
Yeah.
They have little cuts in them. So I'm sure that it makes sound. Probably not as good as Sibelius would write, but
True.
So,
Well, we have several people who have mentioned how good a presentation, and they loved all the details on architecture. And Carol says, this is a wonderful presentation. Love the pictures and the historical information. Thank you for sharing. Feel like I went on vacation with you. And,
okay. Maybe next
James
time.
says, yeah. And Laura says, beautiful photos and wonderful informative talk about those two beautiful cities. I especially want to go back to Finland and spend more time seeing the great places in Helsinki. And she asked is English spoken widely in either of the two cities?
Yes, English was, we were really surprised how many people spoke English. Of course, it's a capital, right? Well, I could give you a little, when they finally let me go back to Czechoslovakia, then and after 20 years, and then finally let me go because I was a citizen. They gave me visas, so I went and I took the whole family. Nobody spoke English in the old country, and this is 88, right? Not that far, not that back. And when we traveled Europe, like Italy, and just with the kids, show them around a little bit. Very, very little English. But now everybody speaks English. All the kids.
I have told people that I'm really grateful that the world is adopting the only language that I can speak.
Well, I have a little theory, and the reason for that, because France tried to make French universal language, the world language. In fact, I think the laws are still, presented in French, whatever. That was a really big push. And but then computers came. And computer language, if the kids wanted to use computers, they learn the words, and they learn this, and they learn that. And so I think that the computer technology, is my personal opinion, is the bedrock of English.
Well, that and American TV and movies. The first time I went to Europe, I noticed that almost everyone, this was in 65, 66, that everyone who spoke English spoke it with a British accent. But now almost everyone who speaks English speaks with an American accent.
Right, exactly.
And
You're absolutely right.
yeah. Jane wants to know how do the three Baltic states relate to each other?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
How do the three Baltic states relate to each other?
Well, they're pretty friendly. There's a lot of business going on between them. There's competition, of course, but there's no animosity among them. They're very, of course, Lithuania during the Nazi occupation, they had some concentration camps, and that's kind of left a little bit of. But that's nothing they could do, right? The Germans came in, and that's what they did.
Right. Tara says that she looked it up, and both Finland and Estonia are part of NATO, according to Wikipedia.
Oh, they are. Okay. Well, then Putin doesn't want any more.
Right. Jane wants to know what your family heritage is.
Well, both of my parents are Czech. We go way back. In fact, all of them. There's on my father's side. Well, there's a little bit of German influence, but otherwise, we go. I have. How far do we go? Well, I'm not really into it, but we have documents, and we can probably trace our family till 1600 to 1600s.
Wow, that's fantastic.
My grandfather was a big landowner and a big kulak, if you want, and my father was a forestry engineer. So, as a kid, I worked in the woods, lumberjack. Yeah, well, my grandfather from my mother's side, he fought in the First War, and when the revolution came in October 17. Of course, they say October, right? The Russians say October, but it's actually was in November, because at that time the Russians were like 2 months behind, well, whatever, in their calendar. But they were caught deep in Russia as a Czech unit, and they sided with the White Russians against the Red Russians, the Mensheviks.
Mm-hmm.
So they were actually fighting against the Bolsheviks, against the rebels, revolutionaries, and they couldn't go back west, so they had to fight their way east, and they fought their way all the way to Vladivostok, which is on the other side of Russia.
Oh my goodness!
Actually, they occupied the Trans-Siberian Railroad, and they fought from one station to the next, and the further they went, the easier it was to fight, because they were so far away from the Bolsheviks' rule. But anyway, so when they went to Vladivostok, they put them on the ships and shipped them home. And many of them, in fact, almost all of them, went around to Africa, and of course to Germany, the German port, and one of them to Polish port. But the boat with my grandfather went across the Pacific Ocean to San Francisco, and they put them on the train and shipped them on the train all the way to New York,
Oh my goodness.
and went on the boat. And so he was gone 4 years in the war. And when I was growing up, he was always telling me about America and how beautiful it is. And of course, you go across Kansas and some of those, you see the fields as far as I can see. And it was for somebody who was still using oxen, to plow the ground. It was quite a revelation. So
That's certainly taking the long way to get home.
yeah,
Goodness.
well, but he was from the very few that made it home. That war was brutal. Well, they all are actually.
Mm. So when you left all of your family behind, I assume.
Everybody, yes, and they suffered. My father was in the Communist Party because if you want to be an engineer, and work, just have to be, but he wasn't politically involved at all. He was just it was a convenience, and like many of them, in fact, probably most of them were latent, quiet communists. So they kicked him out of the party, and my brothers were sent in to work in right on the border, border of Austria and Germany, deep woods, nowhere, really. So anyway, so they, with some hardships, but that's what they do. They punish your families if you make a
Yes.
mistake.
Mm.
I grew up when you misbehaved. When we were in school, especially, like before we were teenagers, or maybe even after, they punished the parents. They didn't punish the kid. They punished the parents.
Oh
And,
my.
so the parents really took great interest in their children and what they do and who they see and whatnot, because first of all, they would punish them, and second of all, it was socially damaging if your kid did something. And people, kids don't realize it, because there's a saying that says, you walk and your past walks with you. And so if you do something stupid when you're young, anyway,
Yeah.
those are philosophical questions.
Well, that's all the questions we have. And I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much,
Well,
George.
Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you for
you.
your
You
help
too.
too.
You're
Okay.
welcome. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.